Now we're going to be discussing the control group section. Within the control groups, we have the naming sheet, we have the VCAs, the pop groups, the mute groups, as well as the talk groups. So let's go ahead and get on the console and jump in and start doing it. Okay, again, not to sound redundant, but 2 ways to get to it. For me, to be able to, we'll start here with the drop-down menu. Okay, we have the control group selection here. We can scroll over, and as you see, we have the group sheet, the VCA groups, the mute groups, and the talk groups. Okay, if you wanted to go ahead and get to the naming sheet, you can do that really easy by pressing the last screen access button, and that gets us to the naming sheet. So here is where you could put obviously all the names in and do all the coloring, just like we did all the inputs and output channels. So for instance, I'm not going to do all of them just to speed things up, but just for instance, VCA1, we'll call that the kick VCA, and I don't know how to spell, the snare, and we'll say toms, okay? Because that's what we kind of have set up already. All right, and like I said, I like to keep the colors for the drums to be blue, so that way everything shows up nice and even. Oh yeah, we have a bass channel, so let's go ahead and name VCA number 4. We'll call that bass. We made him purple. So as you see here, the VCAs are showing up very similar to the same colors on the input channels. All right, pop groups, same thing. A pop group, basically to explain that, it's called a population group. It has no audio function. It allows you to bring channels up to the layer. So for me, the way I like to do it, and we'll see this later on when I actually bring up my show files, I like to use pop groups 1 and 2 to be all the faders that I'm going to be working on for that specific song. So as I get into a song, okay, on the first 12, like these are the faders that I'm going to be messing with. Usually it's all of my instrument channels. The second pop group would be like basically all the vocals, the backing vocals, and like specific effects that are associated with those channels. And then the rest of the VCAs I have assigned for specific things, strings and additional vocals or utility things like iPods and video playback or anything you want. One thing I have though for pop group number 8, that's assigned, and I'll show you this when we go ahead and create the pop groups. That one's always going to be selected to keep area B on the right side of the console. So as I was saying earlier, I always like my vocals in area B to be there all the time, so that anytime I need to get to the vocals, they're always going to be there. It does not have to be vocals. It could be anything that's important or the priority type of channels that it's things that you need to get to at a moment's notice. It's already right there. It saves you a few nanoseconds of having to press pop groups or VCAs. You can get to things right away. It just cuts out all those extra steps. So for now, we'll just, we can call this drums. So this would be all the elements of the drum kit. So that's what we'll go ahead and assign. Let's skip on now to, let me just color that guy right quick. We'll skip on down to the mute groups. We have our physical mute group buttons here on the console. There's no digital readout. We don't have to color them, but we can. Same thing, I have like all my drums are muted on mute group 1. And number 8 is literally all. That's where I select every input, every output. So I hit that guy at the end of the day. Every channel and everything is all completely muted. So again, it's really up to the way you want to work and what's going to work best for you. Talk groups, we have 4 of them on that. The talk groups are basically associated for the onboard oscillator. For example, like if you want to send pink noise down your, for your left and right to make sure at the end of the day, like if you're a house guy, you want to make sure that, the visiting engineer didn't blow up anything, or you just want to check your PA when you walk in and you want to send a signal to make sure all the drivers and the PA sounds correct, or if you want to send, the sine wave and go through all the, do a complete frequency sweep, you can go ahead and do that. Great functionality options for the talk group, very, very handy, especially at the end of the night. You want to go home, if you want to check things, or even early in the day, you got 100 things you got to do. These could be, time-saving events for you to do that. So now to get to the VCA's assignment page, we do have to go here to the drop down and we would select that. So this gives us the view, as you see here on the screen. This is showing us the layout of all the pop groups and all the VCAs. You see now that the names are there, the colors are there as well. And it's also showing the status and the position of the faders. So like if I'm muting any of these, you'll see that they're showing up on the screen. Same thing, you know, with the movement of the VCAs, okay? You know, and you could even press it there if you wanted to. Not a big deal, but you could put your safes in if you wanted to, you know, safe anything out from automation. You have that control there. You could assign channels to the VCAs and the pop groups without having to be in this screen. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that afterwards. But typically the way when I'm setting up the console, I like to do it this way. It allows me to see all the channels and I can just grab everything that I need to. So because we had VCA already, you know, one already assigned with some things, let me go ahead and take out all these devices and we'll go ahead and build this up from scratch. Okay, so now we're gonna start with VCA 1. We have it named to kick. So all those channels that I had in there before are gone. So here we are. We need to go ahead and make sure that we have the kick VCA selected just by clicking on it. You know, just like this if you want to do that. All right, and then we select the inputs that we want to use. So for us, you know, just there's only one channel right now, so we select it here on the inputs, and we go ahead and we add it. Okay, same thing with the snare. We only have just the one snare, and so we'll add that. But for the toms, we got two channels. Okay, so we'll go over here. We'll select rack tom and the floor tom, and we go ahead and we add it. For example, some guys like to have like all of their input channels. So you like to have it on VCA 10. Instead of trying to click each and every single one, you can go ahead over here, select the first one, scroll all the way down. You could do that by, you know, using the first mouse clicker button and scrolling down and select here. And now they're all added and we can go ahead and now every input channel is on VCA 10. All right, pop groups, same exact thing, okay? If you want to create that, so we want to put all of our drums, so just like that, we added it, great. To take them away, you know, if we want to get rid of all of them, we could select them all. We could just hit remove, or if we wanted to, we could just use the clear feature. It just gets rid of everything. So again, a couple ways to do things. So let's go ahead and get all of our drums back into the first pop group, and we'll add those here, and that's it. Same thing. So you got all your aux returns, all your aux sends, all your matrices, and then the masters. All right. So now let's actually take a look here. So we'll have this selected. So as you see, I selected pop group 1. All of those channels are now here on the console. The unfold button is now pressed in. Why? Because the console is unfolded just to these channels. If I go ahead and click this, they disappear, the console goes away, it basically unselects the pop group. All right, the next thing, area B. This is kind of important. As I was saying, I like to have pop group 8 used for my area B, where I keep all my vocals. So even though I didn't name those channels, let's just say, for instance, 17 through 20 are gonna be all of our, you know, area B channels. So let's select pop group 8, as you see that I just did there. And what did I say, 17 to 20. So we'll just select those. We add it, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and press the area B button. All right, and now I'm gonna go over here on the console and I'm gonna press the area B button. So now, no matter what, where I'm going, whatever VCA is selected or not selected or any pop group, this button is always gonna be pressed in because it's assigned to area B. Now I have all my vocals right here. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm working on the snare or the toms or the bass, whatever, you know, whatever it might be, these are always gonna be there and set up. All right, really, really awesome. The next option, which came out in the version 3, was the user button, okay, as you see here. So any of you existing Midas Pro Series users, who might have been on, the old 3, 6, and 9s, and version 2 software. The user wasn't available. So basically what that meant was anytime you added channels to a VCA or a pop group, they always went in sequential order. So for example, like if you had a VCA group and you wanted something to show up maybe on fader 1 here, but it's not because the way the channels are laid out, you can't have it the way you want it to. So now Midas went ahead and added the user option. So if you want to do that, let's do this here on a blank VCA. So I'm going to say user, okay? So now for this VCA, we're gonna put it in order. So as you see, now it's coming up as blank, okay? So say we wanna have the snare drum to be first, okay? And then say we want the bass to be next, okay? Let's add that here. Then rack tom here. Even though it's not labeled, we'll say this vocal, we'll add that. So that's it, we're done. So now it's assigned. So if we go ahead and we press VCA 5, you'll see that now they're showing up where they need to show up in the order that we selected. So you can mix and match, and I personally do that on my show files. Some of my pop groups and VCAs, I prefer in a user setup, so that way the console is laid out in the way that I like to work. So that's very, very important. Okay, and as I said, aside from having to use the VCA group screen to assign your VCAs and your pops, you could go ahead and do it right on the surface. You don't actually have to mess with the screen, unless you need to press the Area B button or set up the user assignment, then you have to use the screen. So let's use VCA 6. But prior to doing that, one thing I want to do right quick is I'm going to link a pair of channels because I want to demonstrate something. So I went ahead and linked overhead left and overhead right. Those are a pair of channels that would normally be linked. So for example, we'll just pan that left and pan that guy right. So as you see, they're linked, okay? We'll get into linking later on. So for the purpose of the video, so we'll select VCA 6, okay? Now let's go ahead, we'll do it again, just kick, snare, and let's do our overheads, okay? As you see, as I selected one channel, both got selected, okay? And we can continue on and so forth just by scrolling around to whatever channels we need, aux sends, whatever we want, we could go ahead and easily put that, and then we make it. We let the VCA button go. Now that VCA is engaged, there's our channels. But as you see, only overhead left is showing. The right one is actually there. If you press it, it'll bring that up. So if you don't have some things linked together in the linking options, again, we're gonna get into that shortly, this will allow you to bank over to the other side to make a change. For example, like if you like to compress the overheads and you have like a lot of toms, the floor toms are going to be reacting on the compressor. The floor tom, the heavy floor toms are going to be, kicking the compressor, into the threshold down a lot more than like say the higher rack toms. So it might throw the image off. So if you don't want both compressors, reacting at the same time because the floor toms are hitting and it's pulling down the right side, you can disengage to have, the compressor to be linked to the bolt side. So you could have separate threshold and release and attack times from the left side to the right side. You could do that with the gate, EQ, whatever you want. So if you needed to flip flop back and forth, you could do that very, very easily there. So that's how we would assign the VCA on the surface. Same is also going to hold true for the pop groups as well. So you can assign just like I did the VCA 6. So now let's move on to the next section, which is our mute groups. Okay, right now, because on the naming sheet, I didn't name or color those, so that's why you're seeing the defaults. Again, you could use the mouse here and actually engage them if you wanted to do that. Or just physically use the hardware buttons here on the console. Just as with the assignments of the VCAs and the pop groups, no different on this screen. You can go ahead, select the mute group that you want to assign these channels to, go ahead, start selecting them, adding or removing them, vice versa. Okay, very, very simple, straightforward, to the point. On the hardware side of it, you could do the same thing. By holding the select button, you can go ahead and start adding in, you can go ahead and start adding in the channels just by selecting them. And as you see now, they're showing up in there. Once, very, very simple, easy, straightforward, to the point. Okay. Next and last for the control groups is our talk groups. Same thing. These are showing the default names and colors because I didn't name them. Okay. As I was saying, you know, if you want to say make a talk group for your aux sends to the monitors, like if you're doing monitors from front of house, or if this was the monitor console, you can go ahead and make one. We'll say auxes, we'll say auxes 9 through 16 are going to be our stage mixes. So we'll add that. So that way, if we want to just check the signal that we're getting to all the monitors, we can make one talk group by engaging that, sending the pink noise or the oscillator, whatever it is that we want. Very, very easy to do that. And just to show you how to do that, you would have to turn on the internal oscillator. I have it selected to pink noise here, and just like that, you press and hold in talk group 1. It takes a moment to do that, and now it'll assign all the signal to that. And you know, we can verify that that's working by selecting the auxes. As you see here, the talk buttons are now engaged. We'll flip the faders and we'll push up, and as you see, we have pink noise leaving the console to go to those outputs. So very, very simple and straightforward, to the point. So that's it for the control groups.